Hi, I'm Patricia Grabarek.
And I'm Katina Sawyer, and welcome to the Worker Being Podcast.
Yay. Katina, it's your article day. What are we talking about today?
So today we're going to be talking about mentoring, but we're not going to be talking about it from the perspective of the mentee or the person who's receiving the mentoring. We're going to be talking about it from the perspective of the mentor. Sometimes it could be a little tricky to find a mentor, but it's less tricky to decide that you want to mentor someone and to provide mentorship for other people. So we're going to be talking about the positive benefits of mentoring someone else.
Sounds good. I mean, it takes people's time to mentor others, and it's very important, obviously, for the mentee to get that experience and that mentorship. And I think it's always good if there's benefits, awesome benefits for our mentors, so that they're not only, I mean, obviously, some people just really enjoy helping others, but if there's other benefits too, then it's another incentive to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So, and everyone's busy, but I think after we're done, there'll be some compelling cases for taking your time to try to give back.
Perfect. Well, before we dive into that article, how are you doing? How's your week been so far?
I'm doing good. The week is good. It's been a little busy because there's a lot going on a bunch of different fronts. I'm so excited that we launched our retreat registration yesterday, though. So that's been like the highlight of the week.
It really has been. It's been so exciting. I was like in such a good mood when we launched it. Like literally I was on the phone with my coworkers and she was like, "You seem awful chipper today." And I was like, "Oh."
You're like, I am chipper. I'm the
chipper.
chipperest chip.
I'm so excited.
It's really cool because, I mean, I don't need to tell you, but for people who are listening, we've been working on putting it together and the idea so much and things like that. So it's just like awesome to see it coming together.
Yes, it's very exciting. I'm very happy that it's all together and ready and people are starting to sign up. And I know it's a ways out, it's not until April. So it's very exciting to see people signing up even this far ahead. So
yeah,
hopefully it'll keep going this way and we'll have a really awesome, exciting session in April. Yay.
Yes. I feel like it'll be really, really great to meet people in person. Like I'm so excited about actually connecting with people, meeting people. Like that just seems great. So yes. I'm really excited about that.
Agreed.
Yeah, the whole thing is just fab.
Awesome. Anything else going on this week? I know you gave a talk earlier this morning, right?
Yeah, I gave a talk today about one of my projects on collective hope. And so that was nice. It was with the Gender and Women's Studies department at GW, so that was fun. And yeah, kind of wrapping up some writing today after we're done with recording. And so yeah, it's so hot still down here in DC. It's 95 degrees today.
Oh my gosh, really?
I know. So when I just like came home from the train to talk to you, I was like trying to walk fast to, get back in time to record and all that kind of stuff. And I was like dying of heat. So I hope that ends soon because I don't want it to be cold, but like I'm like a little bit over 95 degrees.
Yeah, that's fair. It's
October.
I feel like we always have like these warm bursts in October, but they kind of fluctuate between like nice cool weather and then warm. And yesterday really felt like fall. Like I took a walk and I didn't take a sweater or jacket. I just had a short sleeve shirt on and then I kind of like once I started walking and like moving, I warmed up. But at first I was like, oh, right. I really should have brought a jacket.
We're like, no.
So that was weird. I was like, wow, it's fall. And then last night I went to dinner with a friend, and before dinner I get everywhere early. For those of you that don't know that about me, I am always early.
Yes.
So I got there early and I was like sitting outside on the phone with my mom and I started shaking because I was cold. I was wearing long sleeves.
Oh my gosh.
But I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, of course I get cold easily. It was probably like 65 degrees, but still I was very cold. I was like, what? It's fall. So then I had like hot tea and it made me feel very fallish, which I guess is appropriate for October.
Yeah, it is. I think fall is the best season there is. So every time I hear about people having fall experiences, I get very excited because I personally very much enjoy the fall.
Yes. Well, I'm excited to watch Hocus Pocus. That's like my favorite thing to do in October.
Oh, yeah. That's very true. I always watch that as well. And I hadn't thought about the fact that the time where it's acceptable to watch it is coming.
Yeah. I love that movie. It's so good.
What have you been doing this week? What's been fun or what's been going on?
Well, I mean, the retreat launch was a big piece too, right? You know, working on the site, getting that all going, as you know, which has been busy, but like super exciting busy. So I feel like I've been maybe working a little more hours than normal, but in a very exciting way. So I'm very happy about that. Otherwise, nothing. I mean, it's just been kind of busy overall. Like work's been busy. I've had some interesting client conversations, some really positive, some a little more challenging.
Yeah.
Worked at some coffee shops. Met up. I actually met up with somebody that maybe is listening. One of our listeners reached out. That's in my area, and we had a great conversation yesterday over coffee, which was so fun. It's like we were talking about with the retreat. It's so fun to meet all of you, and I hope we get to meet you in April, you know, if you sign up. But obviously in this case it was just kind of a nice little one-on-one conversation, and it was fun. It was just fun to meet people, and I just love meeting people in person and talking about what we do and talking about wellness and workplace wellness and the research and IO psych and all the nerdy things. It was awesome.
That is so fun.
Yeah,
I would find that very exciting as well. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's something people don't really know is that like they can, if you're, you know, liking the show and or the website or whatever, like always you can reach out and say hi. We like to talk to you.
we do. So
We like friends.
we sound pathetic now, but
Be
you know.
our friend. Please be our friend. That's why we started this. We don't have any other friends.
We need to find friends. It's just us against the world.
We don't even care about IO psych. We're just lonely.
Oh man. Oh gosh. But
Oh boy.
yeah, so that was fun, and I don't know. Overall, just working, doing my thing. I feel like nothing super crazy is going on, but in a good way. So I'm doing well.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That is awesome.
So tell me about this article. I want to know all about it. I feel like I've been doing more mentoring recently, and I've loved it. So that's kind of fun. And I also have some really awesome mentors. So tell me why that's a benefit to them and a benefit to me.
Absolutely. So this is a meta-analysis. So we've been doing quite a few of those, but the reason that we've been doing them is because they push together data from across a bunch of different studies. So in this case, they looked at data from 18 different studies. And the reason that they looked at a smaller number than some of the other ones that we talk about that have like hundreds is because there just hasn't been that much research done on the benefits to mentors on mentoring. So there's been a lot more done on what's the benefit of receiving mentoring. There's not as much about what's the benefit of giving mentoring, but still 18 studies is a decent sample size.
Yeah.
And basically what they show is that different types of mentoring that you provide are associated with different types of outcomes for the mentor. So depending upon what kind of mentoring you provide to your mentee, can sort of predict what the outcomes will be. And we can talk about what those types are and what the outcomes are, but it's good for your wellness and for your performance to provide mentorship overall.
Oh, awesome. Did you mention the name of the article? Was I like zoned out?
The name,
Okay.
no, the name is Career Benefits Associated with Mentoring for Mentors, a Meta-Analysis. A very easy, straightforward title, not like a lot of them that we usually have. And it's by Ghosh and Rayo Jr., and it was published in the Journal of Vocational Behavior in 2013.
Nice. Okay, perfect. So we got the details in terms of high level what they talk about, the meta-analysis. I love meta-analyses, like you said. They're awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like they're also very, I don't know, maybe this is our bias because we're dorks, but I think they're really easy to talk about because there's just a lot of, like, it's more streamlined. It's not
Definitely.
necessarily these like very detailed, nuanced things. It's like, well, we're looking across a
Yeah.
lot of studies, so it has to be a little bit higher level. So I think it makes
Yeah.
it a little bit easier to grasp and to talk about.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited. So it sounds like performance is good, well-being is good, right?
Yeah.
Tell me
Yes.
more of the details. I want to know these types of mentorships.
Yeah. So, generally, the reason that these authors were motivated to do this study is because in the mentoring literature overall, like I said, there's this strong focus on what mentees get out of the relationship and how nice it is to have a mentor. But in order for people to have mentors, they have to have someone who's willing to mentor them. And so, in order to, increase people's motivation to want to provide mentorship, we need to better specify what's linked to it. And a lot of the mentoring literature has talked about purely just the altruistic part of being a mentor. So, which also has some positive benefits. Giving back has positive benefits, as we've talked about before, but it's not just about altruism. It's also about doing something that will help your career, and some practical implications of that we can talk about later. But I think that actually also is useful for selling the idea of mentoring being an important activity for your company to do if you are not seeing it as just like half of the equation is getting something out of it, but the other half is losing something or just feels good, but nothing positive is coming from it for them. If you're trying to create a mentoring program in your organization, it could be an easier sell if 100% of the people involved get something out of it that's more concrete than just thinking about it from the mentee perspective. So that's kind of like the motivation for the paper,
Which is fair.
Yeah. And generally, the way that they talk about mentors is anyone who has some kind of more advanced experience or knowledge than the person that they are mentoring. And that doesn't mean that they need to have more advanced experience or knowledge in every area. So you can mentor somebody because you have more advanced experience or knowledge in a particular domain, but maybe they actually know some stuff that they can mentor you in, and do some reverse mentoring later on. But it's anyone who has advanced experience or knowledge compared to the mentee, who is committed to providing support for the purpose of increasing career outcomes for someone that has less experience or knowledge than that person. And there are lots of different definitions of mentoring, but that's sort of a combination of the mentoring literature. So I'll pause there and see if there's any like thoughts that you have, and then we can go into like what the different types of mentoring are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's pretty straightforward. What you described is exactly what I would think of for a mentor and mentee.
Yeah.
Generally, like you said, there's the idea of reverse mentorship, right? Where somebody that's maybe a little more junior in terms of career path, but it's still the same concept, really.
Yeah.
What's behind it is that person has a skill that somebody else doesn't have. So really what you're doing at all times is you're helping somebody in areas that you have more expertise, more skill, more knowledge, versus somebody else. So your mentor doesn't have to be someone that's like way ahead in their career than you. It could be somebody, even potentially it could be somebody that's like a coworker, because they may have very different experience than you, and you can see some skills from them that would be beneficial for you. So it doesn't have to be way up.
Yeah. And it also can be somebody that is just inspirational or motivational to you, which we'll delve into because that kind of brings us to the different kinds of mentoring. So having a comprehensive mentor for people who are thinking about how to find a mentor, thinking about it from the opposite side, you want to try your best to look for someone that can provide you with both career support and what is called psychosocial support. And I'll talk about both of those in detail. And when you're a mentor, you want to think about trying to provide both career support and psychosocial support. So career support is, I think, what most people think of when they think of mentorship, which is basically talking about different career options or sorting through career dilemmas. Should I do this or should I do that? Based on your expertise or your experience in the workforce, what path do you think I should take? Talking through ways to get exposure, making sure that people are more visible within an organization if it's someone internal, trying to protect people within the organization if it's someone internal, helping them determine how they can get more challenging work assignments to grow their skill set. And again, if it's someone in your organization, someone who might nominate you for projects or nominate you for promotions or give you access to information. If it's someone outside your organization, they might give you access to broad information that they only learned when they became a higher level member of an organization, or things that they've learned over the course of their career. Introducing or networking people to people that will get them ahead. So those are all things that have to do with career mentorship. The idea that they're basically giving you tactical support to get ahead on the job.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I mean, like you said, it's what we think about. It's all about what can this person provide to help you grow in your career.
Yes, exactly. And it's very focused on tactical, practical things. So it's not, when we're talking about dilemmas, it's like, you know, how do I advocate for myself to get a better position, or how do I position myself to get assigned this stretch project, or things like that. So it's very tactical and practical. Outside of that, the second big component of mentoring is in psychosocial support, which basically is the parts of the mentoring relationship that makes people feel more competent, that helps them enhance their feelings of confidence and being effective. And those are things that are more emotional in nature, like providing confirmation or verification that someone can do something, being a friend to somebody, listening, treating them with respect and positive regard, empathizing with them, being transparent and talking about problems that they might be experiencing that are impacting their work, even if it's not a work-related problem, keeping secrets and being someone that they can confide in, and even like interacting socially, spending time talking about who the person is outside of work. So all of those kinds of things that have to do with more of the interpersonal, preparing people to be in the proper mindset to get to their goals, is psychosocial support. And ideally, you want someone who's going to be able to give you the tactical and practical and the emotional components as a mentor.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, because it's one thing to say, okay, well, these are things you can say to position yourself to be put on this project, but then you need more than that, right? You need the person that's there when you don't get the project and you feel kind of crappy about it, and you need someone to support you and say like, it's not your fault, or here are some ways you could improve. But so obviously still coaching them, but giving that, empathetic support, like you don't win them all and whatever that looks like.
Right.
And being able to give advice outside of just work. I mean, I think that's really important. I feel like the people that I've worked with from a mentorship perspective, like people that I would consider my mentors, were always like that. And I hope that I've been that way as well. Talking about what work-life balance can look like is something to consider, especially if generally speaking, your mentor tends to be more senior. They might be a little bit older. They may have gone through some of the struggles that you've already been through or going through currently, because they were in a different phase of their life. So being able to share those, and I think the trust piece is huge, because you can come to someone and say you want to be promoted, you want this career path, and they can try to connect you with those in those places, but that's still a trust conversation. Like, you don't want that person running around and saying that, Katina is trying to get ahead of everybody else, or, make it all, I don't know, political and weird. Like, it is a very important conversation to keep within the group, and not make this a political thing. Make it a trust relationship. I mean, it's really about the relationship. Mentorship is about the relationship. So the emotional piece makes a lot of sense that it's important too.
Absolutely. And there's a third component that's sort of part of, in some conceptualizations of mentoring, that's sort of part of that psychosocial component, but they had enough data in this particular study to break it out as its own category. And that's role modeling, which is basically the idea that not just the person providing support for and career guidance for the person that they're mentoring, but also that the mentor is sort of an inspirational figure that shows them like values, attitudes, morals, ethical decision making, things that are more broad about how to be a good person and a good employee that kind of sets the tone for them. So it's not just about like, here's support that's emotional, here's support that's practical, but it's also about like, am I as a person someone that you're trying to learn from and emulate?
Interesting. So do they talk at all like in that definition of role modeling? Is it literally like you can see the person? Because what if they're not in your organization, so you don't necessarily see them on the job?
Yeah. So they basically say that it's in your interactions with them, even if you're not watching them at work, that they're displaying attitudes, values, behaviors, integrity that demonstrate that they have a strong sense of professionalism in general.
Got it.
So I guess that from the mentoring perspective, that would require you, if you're not working in the same job, to like share stories or examples of things that you are doing on the job that might highlight some of those things, or share personal information about what's important to you, what values you hold, and how you live out those values as part of what the mentoring relationship would involve.
I mean, that makes total sense, right? Because if you're not even able to watch the person on the job, you're still going to be talking about certain career issues or concerns or problems to work through. And a lot of times you'll leverage your own experience. And I think it's important to share your story. And that obviously, I think, is where that role modeling can tie in, is as you're sharing your story, you're telling the person more about who you are and how you work. And I think it makes a lot of sense, because I keep going back to like examples of people who I see as my mentors, and like I want to be them. You know what I mean? Like they're like, I want to be them when I grow up. Granted, grow up, that sounds silly, but you know, when I get to that level, that's what I want to be like. So
sure.
I think it makes a lot of sense that role modeling is important, because why would you take advice from somebody that you don't want to be like?
Right. No, totally. I completely agree with you. So for me, I think that is, an important set of things that mentors should be thinking about providing if you're currently mentoring someone or thinking about mentoring someone, providing them the practical support, the emotional support, and then trying to be a person that you think would be a positive role model for them as a human being. Those are sort of the three things that are recommended domains of mentoring within this article.
Okay. So those are the three different areas. And then you talked about the outcomes. So as a mentor, I want to give these three things. And if I do that, then what happens?
Yes. So they are related to different outcomes for the mentor.
Okay.
So if you're providing mentoring, well, in general, first of all, people who serve as mentors are more satisfied and committed to their jobs than those who had not mentored.
Oh.
So compared to people who had not served as a mentor, people are happier and more committed to their jobs when they have served as a mentor. So that's just a general outcome associated with being a mentor. So that's good news.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting, actually. So it doesn't matter if I'm a mentor within the same organization as somebody else. Like I could just be any mentoring.
Yeah. So basically the idea is that you get something out of feeling positively about being able to give back to someone else. And it also causes you to like reflect on your own career and makes you recognize what you have learned and how you have grown. And that causes you to like be more grateful for the benefits that you have in your job.
Totally. I can totally see that. Because I feel like whenever, people come to us for advice on things all the time, like, especially career, I get career stuff all the time. Like, I'm interested in IO psychology. Yeah. Like, what does that mean for me? And as I've continued in my career, I feel like more and more when I have those conversations, I'm like, well, one, I'm so lucky to have gone through what I've gone through to be where I am today. But also, two, I feel like I start to realize that I actually have advice to give. And that makes me feel really excited about that. Like, wow, like I have things to share and help people with their careers. So I can totally see that. It's just like this, almost this validation. So it's like, okay, well, what I'm doing is cool because other people are interested. And I actually have learned a lot that I can impart this knowledge because I've been
Right.
there. I've been through it. I have knowledge to share.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's kind of the point of why it would increase your satisfaction and commitment through kind of those mechanisms of just feeling like, wow, I'm talking about my career. I'm talking about the moves that I've made. I'm talking about, what I've learned. I'm giving it back to somebody else. And that makes me realize like, oh, I guess I have learned a lot. Or it makes me realize like, wow, there are other people that are looking for the opportunity to be in a position like I'm in. So maybe I should like think about some of the positive aspects of like what it means to be here, generally it's positive, but there are differential impacts based on what kind of mentoring you provided. So if you provide career mentoring to someone, you actually perceive yourself as having better job performance and more career success, which is interesting. So I think because of that same mentality, that you're giving someone else advice about what they should do for their career makes you feel like, well, you know what? I actually have a lot of advice to give. I'm probably pretty good at what I'm doing. And I have an enhanced feeling of myself being successful because I recognize that my advice is valuable to somebody else.
It makes sense. It seems like it's all along the same lines that
Yep.
if I am career focused and talk about my career and realizing how much I have to give, then obviously would feel good about it. Like I said, if like we were just talking about, I feel wow, like I actually have advice to give. So therefore,
Yeah.
I must rock.
So moving on to the next type of mentoring is psychosocial mentoring. So this is the kind that provides more of that emotional support to individuals. And what they found with regard to psychosocial mentoring is that it's related to better job satisfaction, organizational commitment, and career success, but primarily more focused on this organizational commitment, job satisfaction. So while providing that kind of career mentoring was associated with like, hey, I perceive that I'm better at my job and I'm more successful, the psychosocial mentoring tends to be associated more with job attitudes like I'm really happy with my job or I'm really committed to my organization. So they kind of have different outcomes, which is sort of interesting.
That is really interesting. And I'm trying to think through like, I mean, I guess it makes sense because the emotional support piece, maybe you're getting something back emotionally, which can up your emotional status, like make you happier or something along those lines, right? So like you're providing some sort of emotional support, you're probably getting some sort of emotional support back, and therefore you're feeling more satisfied, probably generally, not just in your job. I'm sure it kind of impacts your overall well-being, right? Relationships overall make you just happier in your life. So maybe that's where that's coming from.
Yeah, I think it might just be what you're saying. Like you're building some relationships. And if it's someone in your workplace, you might be like, oh, I'm so glad that I'm forming this bond with this new person. And now I feel better about my job and I feel committed to my organization because I want to stick around and stay friends with this person that I'm building this relationship with. Because it probably does have a different impact on like deepening the bond that you have when you provide more of this like emotional support as opposed to just like practical or tactical support. I think it also could be that if someone's telling you about kind of some of the problems or challenges that they're facing at work, and maybe they're like interpersonal problems, or maybe they're things that, they're facing in terms of challenges with like their boss, let's say, if you're kind of through that portion of your career and you've navigated it and you feel like happy with the people in your team, or comparatively you're feeling good about your work situation, you might also like comparatively be thinking about, okay, well, this person has some issues or some problems that I can help them work through. That must mean by comparison, I have it better than that person because I'm helping them to feel good about their job or helping them feel good about their situation, as opposed to, the other way around. So that must mean that I'm a happy person who has something good going on because I'm able to help other people to sort of boost their satisfaction.
That makes sense. So it seems like having both of these types of mentoring relationships, right? The career support and the psychosocial leads to different things. So you probably want to do both. And I know we talked about that earlier. Like we really want to do both. You want to be providing both of those things to your mentees if you're a mentor. But it seems like it's not only because they need that, but also because it's beneficial to you. So you're feeling successful and you're feeling satisfied in your job. I feel like all those things are really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So I think it's like both of these pieces, being tactical, practical, and also emotional and relational, help in building a stronger case for being a mentor, because you both see yourself as more productive, but you also have the opportunity to enhance your own job attitudes. I think an interesting piece in addition, so like in the beginning, we talked about how the big components of mentoring are this career mentoring and psychosocial mentoring. But then there's also this component of role modeling, which is basically less studied, but they included in this study because there was enough for them to take a look at with regard to the existing research. And that's kind of the idea, like we talked about before, that I'm like, you know, somebody that you can look up to. And what they found was that that was linked to both kinds of job satisfaction and perceptions of being a good performer.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's the magical one. So the role modeling, like when I am looking at, I talked about like really looking at my mentors and I'm like, I want to be them when I grow up. And they should then, if they are doing that intentionally, if they're role modeling, then they should also be feeling the positive benefits of that. So like those people are feeling, but that's an interesting one because I'm sorry, I'm like thinking through this out loud. Because when you're role modeling, are you doing it actively or is it just you're just doing your job and you're awesome? So how does that work? Or how do you think, like, what do you think that, how are they measuring role modeling? Is it just from the conversations? Like, I know we talked about how it's not like necessarily sitting there watching the mentor, right? It's about how they're being professional with you or how they're explaining the situations they've gone through. So they're role modeling, not necessarily in a visual way. It's the way that they're conversing. So I guess that's where that comes in because you're like kind of bringing attention to it.
Yeah, and most of the mentoring studies use self-report scales. So it is maybe something that you're consciously trying to do, like setting a good example for people and trying to make sure that, you know, you're someone that they can look up to. So if you feel kind of like fancy like that, like, oh, I'm doing these things so that someone looks up to me, and now I'm like feeling like I'm projecting this image, it could be that you feel like you're projecting an image both of like a person that people want to be and as someone who's successful, which could kind of enhance both.
That makes sense. Okay. Yeah. So it is active since it is a self-reported thing. That makes sense to me. I was like sitting there thinking through like, you know, the people that I feel are role models may not know that I feel that way about them, may not be actively doing that. But if you're sitting there answering questions about those types of behaviors around your mentor, then it is more of an active thing. So that makes sense to me. I just kind of got stuck on that.
you should tell them, Patricia, if they're your role model.
Well,
you should make it known.
I do. But that's not to say that they then change maybe they're more cognizant of their behavior because of that. I don't know. But they're probably not changing their behavior because I told them that they were awesome and I find them as a role model. Like they're probably not like, oh, well, now I should do something different. No, they're just keep doing what they're doing.
That's true. Yeah. So I think that all makes sense. And I think it's also important just to note that each of these, even though they tended more towards one or the other or both, they each had one that was most strongly related. So career mentoring was most strongly related with feeling successful in your career. Psychosocial mentoring was most strongly related with feeling committed to your organization. And role modeling out of the two was most strongly related with perceiving yourself as a high performer on the job. So if role modeling had to go in one of the two directions, it was more leaning towards seeing yourself as a good performer versus seeing yourself as a happy person.
Interesting. Okay. So it seems like, I mean, I think that's really fascinating. So it seems like there's really two of those things. So the career stuff and the role modeling are really driving that you feel successful.
Yes.
And then so that makes the psychosocial even more important because it has its own unique outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that, you know, when we're thinking about this as like a total package, it's important to, as we've been saying, if you're going to serve as a mentor, while if you're a mentee and you're only getting career related support, for example, from one person, you might want to look to another person to get psychosocial support, just because there's other research that shows that from a mentee perspective, it's good to receive both. But if you're a mentor and you're thinking about how to structure your meetings or the way that you give guidance to someone, I think a lot of times people might think that getting more into personal things would be maybe like unprofessional or inappropriate. And obviously you need to keep it within professional bounds, but it doesn't need to be just conversations about like, let's strategize your next promotion. It can also be like, I'm having a really difficult time reading this person, or I'm having trouble in a conflict with this person, or I feel really comfortable working with this other person. How can I align myself so I can get to know them better, or things of that nature? So it can be more of this interpersonal problem solving that even has to do with things outside of work. How do I make work-life balance happen? Things like that are more personal than just, this is the strategy that you need to enact. And so when you're a mentor, don't shy away from those conversations, because it helps you to get more benefits yourself as well if you're being more comprehensive in your approach.
And when you add your own personal examples to get to that role modeling piece, that makes it even better.
Yes. Yeah.
So it sounds
absolutely.
like if I want to be the best mentor out there, then I need to help my mentee. When we sit down and have a conversation, we're going to sit down, we're going to talk about, okay, let's talk about your career goals. What have you done so far? Like, I'm assuming that we've had multiple conversations, right? But this is the next one. Let's talk about the goals. What movements have you made towards those goals? What are the tactical things that we need to be addressing? What roadblocks are you seeing from that perspective? Then I would want to ask them how they're doing emotionally. Maybe not say that, but like, are you feeling stressed? Are you having any issues with any of your coworkers? Something like that, to get them to think about and talk about interpersonal problems. Mm-hmm. And then I want to ensure that throughout both of those things, I am providing additionally to just the guidance and the advice, I'm giving examples from my own experience to show them how it's done.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's correct.
And that would make me the perfect role model.
That would make you the perfect mentor. You would be mentor extraordinaire. But yeah, I think that also something to keep in mind if you're thinking about being a mentor, if you enjoy mentoring and you already are mentoring people, if you're trying to kind of sell this idea to your friends who might make other good mentors, or to your company to do this more systematically, thinking about how to structure, like if you're going to do a mentoring training or you're going to talk to other people about mentoring and why they should mentor, to talk about it more in this way and to set people up to expect to have kind of more comprehensive kinds of conversations, so that, everybody is on the same page with regard to what's important in these relationships, but also that they recognize that if they do this, they're going to get something back from it, which I think a lot of companies or individuals who are thinking about mentoring only think about it as this one-way street. And I think that if you can really talk about that this is something that enhances everybody involved, then more people might be interested in mentoring, or more companies might be interested in mentoring programs, because they're not just getting a value add for half of the equation, they're getting a value add for everybody involved.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think you're right. I think that organizations need to talk about it differently. Mentoring programs, HR, whoever's running those, schools have mentoring programs, wherever you're involved in mentoring, the programs should be addressing it in the way that you just described. And mentors should be looking to do all three things. But I think if you have a mentor, so if you're a mentee and you have a mentor that you're close with, then maybe there's an opportunity to bring this up if you feel like you're missing something. Like maybe they're not giving a lot of personal examples, right? Mm-hmm. And if you trust them already, like, why don't you just tell them, like, hey, like, I've heard that actually it's really beneficial for both of us if you provide some more personal examples. Or maybe they're really focused in on the interpersonal stuff and they like forget something from the career side and they spend more time talking about your relationships at work or something like that. Then you can point them to maybe some other conversations, or ask questions along those conversations, so that you're getting what you need too. I think that that's beneficial from the mentee perspective, is you can show this type of research and say, hey, it's good for you, but also just remembering that you can ask questions to try to move the conversation into one of these three areas that you're lacking or missing.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense, and is really smart, because if you are, on the other side of things, you can also have this conversation, especially if you're already close with someone in this vein, to be like, there's more in it for both of us if we have a more complete relationship. And hopefully if they're a good mentor, they'll be open to listening to your feedback.
Agreed. Yeah, that would be good. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you might want to switch mentors because that's not great. If you don't have a
That's
mentor you
true.
can trust, that's already a problem. So,
Yeah. Don't do that.
yeah, no, definitely don't. So, I think that's all good advice. Is there anything else that you think we need to know from this article or any other takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that mentoring programs are so important in organizations, and having mentors is so important. So just remember, if you're thinking about mentoring someone, there are things in it for you, but also just remember how important having mentors was for you. I think a lot of times as people move through their careers, you look back on it and you think about yourself as being this like independent agent that like got everything that they wanted because they worked hard and they were willing to go out of their way and blah, 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 you know, all this kind of stuff. And that could be true. Like you obviously put a lot of energy and effort into getting yourself into the position that you're in, but sometimes it's easy to forget the people that helped you along the way or provided those opportunities or gave you advice and guidance. And you didn't always know all the things that you know right now. And you didn't always have the kind of skills that you have right now. So just thinking back to like who helped pave the way for your success might also help you to, you know, open your mind to mentoring. And then taking it from a selfish perspective, we've just demonstrated that it helps you in an attitudinal perspective and perceiving yourself as more successful, and you become more committed to your organization, etc. So there's stuff in it for you, but in terms of being open-minded to the idea in general, it can be good sometimes to look back and remember that you didn't get where you are by yourself.
Very true. And I think it kind of harks back to what we were talking about earlier at the very beginning as well, around the fact that you don't have to be like a senior level person to mentor either. So remember that maybe you're mid-career, maybe you've been in your career for like 6 years. That seems like, okay, well, I can't be a mentor. I'm still really early in my career. Well, you're still further along than somebody else. Or
Yeah.
we talked about the fact that it doesn't necessarily have to be tenure based or experience based, right? You might have a skill set that is very specific and unique that you can share with other people. And I think it's really important to understand that you can be a mentor at all sorts of stages in your career. So to be open-minded to that as well, and not to be scared or shy that you may not have anything to contribute. If somebody is coming to you and interested in having you as a mentor, then clearly they think that you're doing something right. And you will see yourself as more successful if you actually participate. So do it.
Yeah, totally. I couldn't agree more. I think that that's all really important. And you can reverse mentor. You can mentor someone, even if you're, not as experienced, someone who's less experienced than you. So in any event, yes. So get out there, mentor somebody, decide, make a commitment to mentoring someone, and it'll benefit you and it'll benefit the other person. And that's a real win-win.
Yes, and then tell us all about it. We want to hear your stories. So please send us a note. Tell us about your mentoring experiences in the past, or, if you are inspired to mentor from this episode, then please reach back out and let us know how it went or what your strategies are. We're really curious to hear. So let us know. You can email us at workerbeing@gmail.com. You can find us on social media at WorkerBeing on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And of course, you can find us on our website, workerbeing.com. Thanks for listening. The Worker Being podcast is hosted by us, Patricia Grabara
and Katina Sawyer, and produced by Allie Johnson.